Just 2 hours from Italy's closest city of Turin, Briançon lies in the French Alps just over the border from Italy, and it is France's highest city, not village, but city, at an altitude of 1,326 meters. Situated high up on a plateau, Briançon sees cold, long, snowy winters, and actually quite nice summers. A bit humid, but pretty warm. Anywhere from like 24 to 28 degrees is normal. So I would say the perfect summer temperature, and it definitely is the perfect place for both winter and summer outdoor sports. Briançon is already quite famous, I would say, with French tourists for outdoor sports, particularly the trails surrounding the city. But what's interesting is that the city itself has actually quite a lot to see, being a medieval city in a fortress with a huge gushing river below. So there's plenty to do down below on the river and also up the top in the fortress because you can walk for quite a long time to see all the ancient kind of ruins from the fortress. I'm not sure if you used to be able to go inside the fortress at the real top of the hill, but when we went there for this trip 2 weekends ago, it was closed access. So I'm not sure if it's always been like that or if it's a recent development. So here we are at probably the most famous part of the city, which is the old city inside the fortress. So it's pretty exciting because you walk in over an old moat, and then you have like the high ceiling and the archways, and then you walk through to the old city, which was surprisingly quiet. I think maybe it was the time of year, like it wasn't quite summer yet, and honestly it was still pretty cold. During the day it was really nice, like 20 degrees, but in the evening it still got to -3 degrees, so maybe that was putting people off coming here just yet. But yeah, we basically had the whole old city to ourselves, bar maybe 10 other people, which was crazy, I thought, considering it's so beautiful and so popular. But like I said, I think it's just not the season yet. And I'll come back in summer to see it in full season, especially because I want to make good use of the river and the lake in summer. So, as I imagined, the fortifications around Briançon are on a UNESCO architectural treasure list. I assume they must be on some sort of list because they are stunning and they're also just huge. Like they spread for so long and they go across the river and then higher up into the mountains. So it really is huge how long they go on for. And the fortifications were built, well, started to be built in 1692 when France was at war against many other European countries. And the king at the time got an engineer and military architect to build the fortifications around Briançon, basically to protect it with medieval walls. So it really is an ancient medieval city in every sense of the word. This was definitely my favorite viewing point of Briançon, where you can see the more modern Briançon below, which is like the suburb, I suppose you could say, and it has like all the giant supermarkets and less cute medieval things. Basically, they get chucked down the bottom there. And this part I really loved because had the old lookout towers. I believe there were 3 or 4 of them. Yeah, which were obviously used for viewing back in the 16 to 1700s. But now it's used for viewing, but just not from a military sense. And you can actually take really cool photos from inside because the slits that you can see through are very narrow and vertical. So Briançon itself has been here since pre-Roman era. Of course, it then fell to the Roman Empire, but this was well before the fortifications were built in the 1600s. And in fact, they did their job well. Briançon was never actually attacked or taken over until World War II, when it was occupied by Italian and then German forces, but it was then liberated again by the French in 1944, putting it back into French control like it is today. And well, usually a city like this would kind of be forgotten in the 20th century, but Briançon instead has turned itself into a real outdoor powerhouse. I mean, it's popular in winter and summer, with spring and autumn seasons being a bit more quiet. But yeah, through summer and winter, it's very, very popular for skiing. There's also a massive golf course there, and then as summer really kicks in, people come for mountain biking, hiking, cycling, because Briançon is also home to some peaks over 4,000 meters. So it has permanent glaciers, and there's a lot of famous cycling paths, which I mean, they're actually the road, but yeah, cycling up to these massive peaks. So you're basically right in front of the glaciers, which is what we ended up doing. And yeah, it was absolutely stunning, especially because for some of the trip, you can go away from the main road and basically cycle through a plateau which isn't trafficked. So you're just following the river with these huge mountains surrounding you, and it's spring, so it's super colorful, all of the flowers coming out of the grass. Regarding hikes, there's many to choose from, but honestly, this would be my top recommendation is just walking to the fortress at the top of the hill that you see from the center of the old town, because these are the views you get. Like, you see obviously the surround mountains, but the old town itself just looks incredible in the fortress in the bottom of the valley. So for me, I would say the best hikes are honestly the ones just closest to town, because you don't have to walk very far and it has the best views. Obviously, a lot of the mountain trails are also stunning, but um, in the end, many of the high alpine mountains look the same. You can get similar views on the Italian side. So we came here because we really wanted to see the military fortress and the history of the city. So for that reason, I would say the hikes around the city where you can look down on the city are probably the best, in my opinion. So this here is the fortress area at the top of the hill that we were hoping to get inside just because of how huge it is. And also I'm just curious to see what it looks like on the inside after all these centuries. But it was closed. Like I said earlier, I'm not sure if it's always closed or if it was just closed at this point in time. But yeah, it would have been awesome to get inside. But anyway, you can just walk around and see the views for now. And it extends even further than you think, because once you get to this initial part at the top of the hill, you walk around it and you see it goes even further into the distance. So now we're down in Lower Briançon, which is where you would likely be staying. We ended up camping because we took the van, which I think is always the best suggestion because there's loads of free camping. We just stayed in this car park basically with stunning views, and it was free. There was also garbage bins there, which was perfect. And there's also parking down right next to the fortress where you can stay, but you have to pay, but it has toilets and everything, so it's also quite convenient. But yeah, it depends on your budget really. And of course there's accommodation, but being France and being a touristic place in France, it's of course very expensive. From what I saw, I think the cheapest accommodation I could find per night was 60 euros. And then it had pretty, I would say, general French prices that honestly to me have been quite similar in most of the bigger towns or cities I've been to in France, which is, like €20 for a meal, which is definitely more than we plan to spend being from Italy. But yeah, up to you what your budget is. We had a fun time at the supermarket. Honestly, the choice of cheese and meats is fantastic. So we just went to the supermarket and stocked up in our little van fridge, and yeah, that's what we ate for our 3 meals of the day. But it was perfect. Now, this has to be one of the most iconic parts of going to Briançon is this. I put the name on the screen because I don't know how to say it, but basically it's one of the highest passes. There's two. This is the lower one, and then there's another higher pass, which I'll put the name on the screen. But yeah, this is what I was talking about with some of the famous cycling routes where you can cycle all the way up to the glaciers. And this is just so iconic because the plateaus that you cycle through, for me, are more stunning and more exciting than the actual glacial peaks. There's also an alpine garden up the top, and of course, like a bar restaurant, so you can eat while staring at the glaciers. But my favorite part was definitely the tiny French villages that you cycle through on your way there, and everyone's out like cooking a barbecue and cheering you on and saying "Brava!" So it's really exciting. So, what we're cycling on now is the off ramp I was talking about, how you can go off the main road instead of cycling with the cars the entire time. And this is the plateau, basically, where you cycle across along the river. And it's got quite a few villages. I was surprised because it seems very isolated. But yeah, there's quite a few villages as you cycle through here. They're obviously all very small and very quiet. but it makes the trip more interesting. So I was very happy to see so many villages, and they're all quite steep. So it was definitely kind of hard to cycle up through the village, try and take in the view and film at the same time. But yeah, I was kind of always wanting to stop to look and take photos. So the trip was definitely taking longer than it should have. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention is also in Briançon there are via ferradas, including some that is behind the main city, so you can do the Via Ferrata with views of the old city. And then there's others in the mountain, of course. So we only went for a weekend, but because it took so long to do this cycling to the glaciers, we didn't end up getting to do the Via Ferrata, which probably would have been my preference because I prefer climbing. And then there's also a lot of sport climbing, of course, in the mountains themselves. But yes, really, in Briançon, if you're into the outdoors, I think a weekend would really be tough to do everything you want to do. But yeah, so there's so much to choose from here. I was originally thinking we would try and like leave early in the morning, cycle to the glaciers, come back, and then do the Via Ferrata. But of course, we got up at like 10 a.m. because it was also -3 at 6 a.m. So wasn't much motivation to get out of the van. But yeah, so there's really just so much you can kind of fit into a day. It just depends what your preference is.